Television visionary Simon Cowell emerged with eyes honed like blades and a mind tuned to recognize possibility where others saw nothing. From the quiet anonymity of a mailroom to the summit of global entertainment, his ascent reshaped what audiences believed television could be. No one possessed an instinct quite like his. He was the architect who transformed strangers into icons, the unseen hand that ignited millions of dreams and redefined the authority of broadcast power. For decades, his presence altered the rhythm of popular culture, creating platforms that lifted voices from obscurity and placed them before the world. The empires of American Idol, The X Factor, and Got Talent did not simply entertain. They rewired the aspirations of an entire generation. Wealth followed in staggering measure, homes stretching from one continent to another, collections of machines gleaming with excess, fortunes counted in numbers that stunned even the wealthy. Yet beneath the spectacle lived a battlefield unseen by the cameras, a man wrestling with darkness, injuries that threatened permanence, and the weight of a future measured not in trophies but in legacy. Music, before this journey unfolds, pause and reflect on the moments his work sparked hope or joy in you, because this story is not merely about success, but about endurance carved from pressure. Even the most brilliant stone is shaped by shadow. Long before fame found him, Simon Cowell was a sensitive boy growing up amid expectations louder than affection. Born in London in 1959 and raised away from its glare, he lived in a household where excellence was demanded but praise was scarce. His mother, Julie Brett, moved with the grace of a ballet dancer, elegance embodied, yet warmth often felt distant. His father, Eric Silic Philip Cowell, a disciplined executive, believed rigor forged character, though tenderness rarely followed. The absence of affirmation became an echo through Simon's youth, a silence heavier than reprimand. School offered no refuge. Classrooms became arenas of discomfort, rules clashing with a restless spirit that refused to conform. He left with modest qualifications and a deeper sense of failure, drifting from one job to another, each rejection chiseling doubt into his resolve. When a position appeared at a music company, secured through family connection, it was not triumph but survival. He entered the industry unseen, delivering coffee, sorting letters, watching success glide past him without acknowledgement. Music. He existed as a shadow among stars, feeling invisible in a world obsessed with recognition. Humiliation did not extinguish him, it tempered him. Every dismissal sharpened a hunger to prove worth. In the early 1980s, armed with little more than stubborn belief, he co-founded a modest label that sold novelty records and fitness tapes. It was not glamorous, but it was his. A small breakthrough arrived when a pop release found its audience, briefly lifting him from obscurity. Hope flickered, then faded. Financial collapse followed, forcing him back into his childhood room, nearly 30 and stripped of illusion. Nights were heavy with regret, mornings with uncertainty. He later admitted tears were frequent companions, despair whispering that his best years were already gone. Yet something refused to die. Music, within the wreckage, resolve hardened. His journey was never a fairy tale. It was a relentless struggle against doubt, failure, and the quiet fear of insignificance. This crucible forged the resilience that would later astonish the world, proving that greatness often rises from the most unforgiving ground. Comment or write. R.I.P. Simon Cowell to honor him. Asterisk, he did not arrive at prominence by accident. Every step was earned through endurance, through rebuilding after collapse, through choosing persistence when retreat would have been easier. Long before audiences spoke his name with reverence or disdain, Simon Cowell existed behind the curtains of British pop music, navigating corridors that rewarded resilience and punished weakness. In the mid-1980s, a single pop track climbed the charts and handed him a brief moment of validation. It was more than a hit. It was proof that his instincts were not illusions, that success felt fragile, constantly under threat of vanishing as quickly as it appeared. Each fleeting recognition carried equal parts exhilaration and terror, because failure had taught him how easily momentum could dissolve. Music, triumph never embraced him gently. It arrived demanding payment and anxiety and sleepless nights taught as opportunities widened. He was recruited into roles that allowed him to listen, to sense the intangible spark that separated noise from potential. He remained largely unknown, but an almost uncanny intuition for mass appeal was taking shape. During the 1990s, he launched ventures that critics mocked openly. Novelty acts, televised characters, unlikely performers, choices that provoked laughter from purists. Yet he saw power where others saw triviality. He understood that connection mattered more than credibility, that reaching people outweighed impressing gatekeepers. Patience became his shield, resilience his currency. A major chart success in the mid-90s cemented his quiet ascent, reinforcing a foundation laid, brick by brick, through refusal to quit. The turning point arrived at the dawn of a new millennium. Standing before cameras not as a producer but as a judge, Simon Cowell's blunt honesty ignited immediate reaction. Audiences recoiled or leaned forward, transfixed. He spoke without cushioning truths, delivering assessments sharp enough to sting yet impossible to ignore. Controversy followed instantly, but so did fascination. He was not performing cruelty. He believed candor respected dreams more than false encouragement. The format exploded in popularity, carrying him across oceans and into living rooms worldwide. Music. Overnight, he became a household presence, his earnings soaring. His influence expanding beyond borders. With new platforms came new empires. Shows launched, franchises multiplied, and global audiences tuned in by the millions. Simon was no longer just a judge. He was the architect of a worldwide entertainment machine. Yet every accolade carried a cost. Labels followed him relentlessly, harsh, heartless, unforgiving. Accusations cut deep, but his stance remained firm. To him, truth was an act of respect, even when it wounded. By the end of the decade, his influence had reshaped modern television, launching careers that filled stadiums and dominated charts. Awards arrived, honors accumulated, and wealth reached staggering heights. Still, fulfillment remained elusive. Music, long hours blurred days into nights. Pressure hollowed moments meant for rest, and isolation crept in behind applause. Fame magnified emptiness rather than soothing it. The brighter the spotlight, the deeper the silence afterward. Relationships fractured under schedules that never slowed. Private doubts multiplied beneath public confidence. He questioned whether the life he built was one he truly wanted. Success, once imagined as salvation, revealed itself as another demanding master. Friends faded, romances dissolved, and work became both refuge and prison. Each achievement reminded him of sacrifices invisible to viewers. Behind the tailored suits and decisive glances stood a man bearing unseen weight, proof that commanding admiration often requires surrendering peace. Then scandal arrived, uninvited and unforgiving. A personal relationship detonated across headlines, exposing choices that shattered trust and alliances. The world watched as judgments formed faster than explanations. For a man accustomed to scrutiny, this was different. Shame replaced control, and privacy evaporated. He admitted regret openly, acknowledging pain without excuse. From that chaos emerged the birth of his son, Eric, a moment that reoriented everything. Music, fatherhood softened edges carved by decades of defense. Priorities shifted abruptly. Meetings gave way to moments. Presence replaced ambition. The relentless drive paused, confronted by a life that required patience rather than precision. Though wounds from scandal lingered, transformation was undeniable. Those closest to him witnessed a gentler rhythm take hold. He learned tenderness through routine, responsibility through love. Guilt remained, but it became teacher rather than tormentor. The narrative surrounding him evolved from condemnation to complexity. He was no longer only a mogul or judge, but a flawed man striving to rebuild trust and meaning. Redemption did not arrive as spectacle. It unfolded quietly in ordinary moments that carried extraordinary weight. Music, his journey proved that even public failure can yield profound private growth when met with humility. Comment or write, R.I.P. Simon Cowell, to honor him. From the fragile equilibrium of renewal, life delivered another blow that no wealth or authority could soften. Loss arrived with devastating clarity. In the midst of professional obligations and renewed purpose, Simon Cowell faced the passing of his mother, Julie Brett. To the outside world, it marked the closing of a long life lived with elegance. To him, it was the collapse of an emotional pillar that had stood since childhood. Julie had been the quiet constant, the figure whose approval he sought even when words were few. Her death hollowed him in ways cameras could never capture. Projects paused, schedules dissolved, and grief stripped away decades of armor. Music. The ache was intensified by memory, by the earlier loss of his father, Eric, years before. His father had never witnessed the heights Simon eventually reached, a truth that lingered like unfinished conversation. With both parents gone, the tether to his origins snapped, leaving him suspended between gratitude and regret. Friends described a man unmoored, unusually silent, vulnerable in a way few had ever seen. He admitted openly that the absence left by his mother was the deepest pain he had known. Applause meant nothing in the quiet aftermath. Accolades cannot replace a voice that once steadied him. Yet amid mourning, reflection took root. Holding his young son while burying his mother forced a confrontation with time, mortality, and the meaning of presence. Joy and sorrow collided, teaching him that life gives and takes without negotiation. Colleagues noticed subtle changes, patience replacing urgency, empathy softening judgment. Beneath the sharp wit lived a son grieving both parents, carrying scars that shaped every pause in his speech. Loss did not destroy him. It carved depth, leaving reminders visible in his eyes whenever their names surfaced. Then came the reckoning of the body. Under the sun of a quiet afternoon, a single misstep during a routine activity shattered the illusion of invincibility. A violent fall left his spine fractured, his future uncertain. For a man accustomed to command, helplessness was a foreign and terrifying state. Surgery was brutal, recovery agonizing. Pain rewrote every hour, turning nights into endless tests of endurance. Hospital rooms replaced studios, monitors replaced applause. Each movement threatened permanence, every breath a reminder of fragility. Music. He later confessed how close he came to losing everything, not in fortune, but in life itself. In that crucible, one thought eclipsed all others, his son. The responsibility of fatherhood became fuel when strength faltered. Rehabilitation was relentless, each step a battle against despair. Seasons of television passed without him, and his identity fractured under forced stillness. Yet the same defiance that carried him from obscurity reignited. Encouraged by small victories and a child's faith, he fought his way back to motion. Just as recovery began to feel secure, fate struck again with another accident, reigniting public mockery and private fear. The deeper wound was existential, the realization that control is an illusion and survival is never guaranteed. Through pain and ridicule, something shifted. Vulnerability replaced bravado. He acknowledged fear without shame, understanding that strength now meant endurance rather than dominance. The man who once ruled stages confronted mortality and emerged tempered, humanized. Music, survival redefined power. It was no longer about command, but about presence, resilience, and the courage to keep living fully despite uncertainty. As years passed, scrutiny turned toward his appearance. Decades under relentless cameras and personal choices left visible marks. Cosmetic interventions intended to preserve youth instead sparked ridicule and headlines. The irony was cruel. The critic became the subject. He admitted misjudgment candidly, choosing to stop and allow time to reclaim authenticity. Aging, once resisted, became accepted, yet exhaustion ran deeper than aesthetics. He withdrew, stepping back from constant exposure, allowing space for healing both physical and emotional. Interviews grew rare, words measured. Conversations shifted from ambition to family, from empire to moments that mattered. Public attention remained unforgiving, dissecting every change. Still, he did not disappear. He reemerged slower, older, undeniably human. Audiences saw vulnerability where once there was certainty, and in that brokenness, a deeper connection formed. Colleagues reflected on the irony that the man once perceived as untouchable became most relatable through hardship. Music, his resilience shone not through triumph, but through survival etched with humility. Then tragedy struck the wider family of his legacy. The sudden loss of Liam Payne, a young artist he had guided from uncertainty to global recognition, reverberated with devastating force. The news rippled across the world, but for Simon, it cut as deeply as any personal loss. He spoke not as an executive, but as a grieving mentor, acknowledging the pain as one might mourn a son. Grief reopened old wounds, memories of parents lost, of responsibility carried. Work halted, silence settled. He turned inward, anchoring himself to fatherhood, holding his child closer in the shadow of loss. Music, fame felt irrelevant beside mortality's reminder. Comment or write, R.I.P. Simon Cowell, to honor him. In the stillness that followed, reflection replaced momentum. The passing of a young life he had once nurtured forced Simon Cowell to confront the human cost hidden beneath spectacle and success. Fame, once a measure of achievement, revealed its fragility. He revisited early memories, recalling hopeful faces and trembling voices standing before him years ago, unaware of what lay ahead. Those moments, once stepping stones toward empire, now carried the weight of responsibility. Music, loss reframed his legacy, shifting focus from accolades to accountability, from charts to care. The recalibration was quiet but profound. He stepped further back from the relentless cycle of production and promotion, choosing intention over immediacy. Days once consumed by contracts now open to walks along the coast, shared laughter and ordinary routines that carried extraordinary meaning. Fatherhood became his compass. Teaching, listening, and simply being present replaced the chase that once defined him. The boy who had grown up craving approval had become a man determined to offer it freely, especially to the one person who depended on him most. As time moved forward, age arrived not as an adversary, but as a teacher. By his mid-60s, Simon Cowell no longer occupied the role of feared authority. His presence on television softened, shaped by scars visible and unseen. Wisdom replaced severity, patience replaced sharpness. Each word carried the echo of pain survived, each pause a reminder of mortality faced. He spoke openly of learning that quiet strength can outlast judgment, that compassion often holds more power than critique. Music, survival had rewritten his priorities. At home, the symbols of wealth transformed into backdrops for a different life. Mansions became sanctuaries, routines disciplined not by ambition but by care. Rehabilitation exercises guarded a spine once shattered. Meals were chosen with deliberation, each decision a conversation with longevity. Even vision, once relied upon to recognize brilliance in others, began to falter, stirring fears deeper than any headline. The thought of missing moments with his son unsettled him more than public Scrutiny overcut. Evenings glowed with domestic intimacy. Music shared quietly, stories read slowly, rituals built with intention. Outside, his enterprises continued to generate vast fortune. Properties spanning continents, collections amassed over decades. Yet attachment to excess loosened. Wealth became tool rather than trophy. He spoke firmly of inheritance measured not in currency but in values, channeling resources into causes that offered opportunity where chance had been scarce. Music, legacy shifted from accumulation to contribution. Cosmetic pursuits that once aimed to freeze time gave way to acceptance. Lines in silver replaced smoothness, not as defeat, but as testimony. He chose memories over mirrors, presence over preservation. Pain blurred vision, and the passage of time intertwined with resilience, each challenge reinforcing the truth that endurance defines character more than perfection. Projects narrowed to those that promised impact rather than expansion. Charity initiatives, mentorship, and education took precedence over prime time dominance. Public appearances became selective, deliberate. Applause yielded to purpose. Ratings lost relevance beside resilience. In the quiet victories, a careful stretch at dawn, a bedtime story whispered, guidance offered without cameras, his life found meaning. The judge transformed into mentor, the empire builder into steward. Music, his journey embodied a universal lesson. Fame fades. Health wavers, but love and humility endure. Now, standing shaped by survival rather than spectacle. Simon Cowell's story invites reflection beyond celebrity. It asks what truly remains when ambition quiets and applause fades. Imperfect, scarred, and visible in his humanity, he represents the courage to change after failure, to love despite loss, to rise even when broken. His legacy is not flawless triumph, but resilience forged through adversity. In every scar and shadow, he reveals a simple truth. The greatest measure of a life is not empire, but empathy. Comment or write Rip Simon Cowell to honor him. In the quiet continuation of his days, Simon Cowell stands as a man no longer racing time, but walking beside it. The urgency that once propelled him through airports and studios has softened into deliberation. Every movement now carries awareness of breath, of pain remembered, of moments that can never be reclaimed once lost. Survival has etched patience into his posture. Reflection has slowed his stride. Music, he is no longer chasing the future. He is safeguarding the present. The world still sees the familiar figure at judges' tables, but the energy has transformed. Where once there was dominance, now there is discernment. Where sharpness once ruled, understanding now leads. He listens more than he speaks. He measures words not for impact, but for truth. Audiences sense it. The man before them has lived through storms that stripped illusion and left only essence. Strength, he has learned, does not need volume. At home, life unfolds in rituals both simple and sacred. Morning exercises protect a spine that will never forget its breaking point. Each careful movement is a reminder of fragility and survival intertwined. Meals are chosen not for indulgence, but for longevity. Health has become currency more precious than any contract he ever signed. Even his eyesight, slowly betraying him, reshapes his fear. Not of fading fame, but of missing the details of a child's face, the fleeting expressions that mark growth. Music, loss has taught him what truly cannot be replaced. The wealth surrounding him remains vast. Almost surreal, properties overlooking oceans and cities. Machines engineered for speed and status resting quietly, no longer urgent. Once symbols of victory, they now feel secondary. Money has become a means to widen opportunity rather than narrow comfort. Foundations, scholarships, and quiet acts of giving now define his reach more than headlines. He speaks with clarity about this choice, rejecting inheritance as entitlement, favoring values as legacy. Fatherhood anchors every decision. Time with his son is guarded fiercely, treated as sacred ground. Bike rides, music shared, stories repeated until memorized. These moments form the architecture of a life rebuilt. The boy who once longed for approval has become the man who offers presence without condition. Music, in that exchange, something heals across generations. The scars remain, public missteps, physical pain, grief layered upon grief. The loss of those he loved, including artists he guided and family who shaped him, lingers like a quiet ache. Yet these wounds no longer define him by weakness, but by depth. They are reminders that empathy is earned, not assumed. That compassion is forged not in comfort, but in endurance. Today, Simon Cowell's influence is quieter but deeper. He mentors without spectacle. He supports without spotlight. He chooses fewer words, but each one carries weight shaped by experience. The empire still stands, humming in the background, but it no longer commands him. He commands his time, his health, his presence. Music, that choice marks his truest success, and so his story does not conclude with applause or curtain calls. It settles into something more enduring, a life measured by resilience, humility, and love hard-won through pain. His journey reminds us that legacy is not built solely on what we create, but on how we change when creation costs too much. In stepping back, he has stepped into clarity. Simon Cowell's life, imperfect and exposed, stands as testament to the power of transformation. Not from obscurity to fame, that story is familiar, but from control to surrender, from ambition to meaning, from judgment to empathy. Music, in that evolution, his greatest contribution emerges not on screens, but in quiet rooms, shared moments, and lives touched beyond view. Comment or rape Simon Cowell to honor him.